What's up and welcome back to the final Kinda Funny Loki Season 2 breakdown. Of course, I am Tim Geddes. I am joined by, it's Christmas in November, Joey Noel.
Hello.
Also joining us is the new face of video games. Happy November 10th, Charles Hamilton's birthday.
November 10th. For all time, always.
Always. Blessing Adeoye Jr. And rounding out the group today, it's Matt Rorabeck.
Did Goldfarb and Roger get turned into spaghetti, or
You know,
Their branches didn't make it.
if I'm being 1,000% honest with you, here's what happened. Roger, we had his chair set up. He was going to be right here, but then he had work to do. So he was like, hey, is it cool if I back out of this one? He was really bummed about it, but I was like,
shocked when I heard him ask that, because I was like, did you not watch the episode?
I literally pushed back. I'm like, are you sure? But he's like, hey, he's trying to be responsible. And I'm going to be completely honest, forgot I had Goldfarb on the show. Totally just forgot. That was on me. And Goldfarb, I love you. I am very, very sorry. I'm sure he loved this.
It's also crazy because today, like, so many people have today off, so it might have actually worked. But
Yeah, you know what?
Just one of those days.
That one's on me.
Well,
And
I'm
now I
sorry
have
to
hair in
bring
my
that
eye.
Oh.
This isn't good. This
but
is
happy
real
to
bad.
be there.
Oh no. What is
Oh,
that, hair?
no.
Oh god.
Like an
Did you
eyelash.
stab yourself?
I'm
Oh,
gonna die.
no.
Anyways,
Rub-
this
I need to
is...
get
I was gonna say something bad.
I can get a
about
cup of
it.
warm water if you need to, like, you flush it out or something.
No, I'm good. I'm good for now. I'm good. I'll be good. This is kind of funny.
Do you think he's just gonna do that on set, like pouring a cup of warm water?
I mean, the
today?
show must go on.
The show, but for all time,
Listen,
always,
I get it.
everybody. This is the finale. We got to talk about it. It's Screencast. We do the show each and every week where we talk about the latest in TV, movies, and trailers. We've been having such a great time talking about Loki this season. I'm really bummed that it is over now, but we are not done talking about this. You can check out Kinda Funny in Review. Next week, we are going to assemble the OG MCU in Review crew, where we will have everybody rank, review, and recap this season against the rest of the MCU. We just posted our episode of the Marvels, so you can go see where that fell. Interesting conversation. Definitely recommend checking out that episode, whether or not you're planning on watching that movie. Today, we're brought to you by BetterHelp and Immersion Fragrances, but guess what? James Hastings, Jedi Master Deadpool, Casey Andrew, Nathan Lamoth, they're not going to have to hear those ads because they're supporting us over on patreon.com/kindafunny. You can do that too, and you won't have to hear ads. You get to watch a bunch of shows live as we record them. You get a bunch of bonus content. It's fantastic for everybody involved. But enough about all of that. We got to get into it. I wanted to get everybody back. We lost Roger and Goldfarb. But I've episode by episode been talking to all of you about the show. It is now over. So I want to hear all the thoughts. Bless, I want to start with you. What did you think of this finale?
Oh my God. So it's been fun going week to week, and, like, you know, I was here on episode 2 or 3, I want to say, for the breakdown. And for the most part, this season has been keeping up and it's been excellent quality. I didn't love last week's episode. Last week's episode, actually, I thought was kind of disappointing coming off of where we were at with episode 4 and where that ended. This episode was so good that it made me retroactively like last week's episode. Like, seeing the full picture and seeing how they tied all the themes together and seeing how they completed Loki's arc as a character, I am shocked that they pulled it off so well, because my biggest fear was that we were going to end this episode and the whole thing was, oh, we fixed the loom, and that's what we're going to drive at. And I wasn't compelled by that, because so much of the Loki, like, TVA stuff, so much of it feels like jargon, so much of it feels like MacGuffin, so much of it feels like, oh yeah, get the thing so you can do the thing so you can fix the thing. And I'm like, okay, well, like, it's fun because the aesthetic is fun, right? But, like, what is the substance? Like, what are we getting out of Loki as a character? What are we getting out of, you know, the whole thing with Sylvie? And, like, oh man, they keep driving down, like, the road of Sylvie keep wanting to kill He Who Remains, and, like, it's getting kind of tired. The way they wrap it up, the way they, like, reinforce even Sylvie's point of why she needs to take down He Who Remains, right? Because it is about free will. It is about freeing the timelines. It is about taking the control out of his hands. And the way they have Loki's character pick up the mantle and loop it not just around back to where the Loki TV show has set up Loki to be, but for what Loki has been set up to be throughout the entire MCU, him wanting the throne, him wanting the royalty, him wanting to have control and be a god. Now he actually has to be a god for the goodness of everything. Like, insane. Like, I can't believe they fucking did it. Like, I can't believe this finale was that good. That, along with, you know, when I look at this episode, right, like, I kind of look at it in 3 parts. There's the first part of Loki trying to fix the loom, right? Him having that objective, and then him having to learn the centuries of knowledge of, like, physics and all this shit.
Yeah.
excellent, route to go down. Then you have it go from that to his confrontation with He Who Remains and Sylvie, and that part excellent. And then you have it wrap up with Loki realizing what he needs to do, and that whole stretch, the visuals of it, the whole like him grabbing the branches. At first, I was like, okay, what is this? But they sold me on it just for the fact of, hey man, this is a dude that's been at it for now centuries, and he's gained this knowledge and he's gained this power. He can stop time. He's like this ultimate time god now. Oh man, I can't believe they've done it this well. So I absolutely love this finale. 10 out of 10 in my eyes. I know we don't do scores, but this is 10 out of 10 in my eyes.
Joe.
It's shocking how well that they nailed this. My expectation for MCU Disney Plus shows at this point, pretty low. I feel like they're not super great at landing the plane. We always end up a couple episodes before, like, how are they going to wrap this up? How's it going to do it? I feel like most of the times it's a miss. This was a huge hit. And this is also coming from me who like doesn't really gravitate towards this side of the MCU. I'm way more on like the Captain America, like super grounded spy stuff. So all of this timeline stuff is like really hard for my brain. But it was really just incredible to watch. This is an episode where at the end of it, I was like, do I turn this back on? Like, do I watch this again for a second time? The way that the music cues in this episode are used are so good. The scene where he's walking out and you see Owen Wilson and Sylvie at the window and they're just yelling at him. It brought me back to a point of the Not Penny's boat from Lost, where you're just like, I haven't felt emotions like this in a very long time. And I'm so happy that it ended the way it did. I'm happy that it seems to be a definitive ending. No Loki season 3. Like, let's just tell these contained stories. It doesn't have to, I don't think that there's anything we can really gain from extending this. And it's so good.
Oh, yeah. Matt, what about you?
I'm right there with you guys. I think this is an all-timer when it comes to the MCU. I think it's an all-timer episode. I think Loki, the character, this show as a whole is an all-timer. I think from the minute that kind of backwards Marvel Studios logo happens at the very beginning of this and you get that music cue, it just was pedal to the metal, just insane, playing with that Groundhog Day kind of thing we've seen in stuff that deals with time travel all the time in a fun way, and then it gets to in some intense moments, and bringing this character full circle, and like Blessing brought it up perfectly, of becoming this multiversal god, or this kind of god of time that's kind of the battery that's holding everything together, so he can see his friends kind of finally live their lives and go on, and finally getting his glorious purpose. I mean, even having the first episode of the series titled that, and then this titled the same thing. And I can't believe after however many years the MCU, it's, God, I don't even know how time works, ironically. But
like 15 years.
I know. I can't believe this character's been around that long, and that they were able to kind of put everything together into these 2 seasons of this show and do it this perfectly. Like, I'm just kind of blown away. Joey already mentioned the music. I know, Tim, you're going to probably pop off with that in a sec, because it is absolutely insane how good the music in this series was, how good the look of everything was, the production design. I'm just going to be repeating what people said, and we'll go into more details. But like, I really do think that this is an all-timer. And I remember, Tim, when we did that first episode, when I came on, I said, like, even with those 4 episodes, like, I thought that Loki season 1 and 2 together kind of skyrocketed up to one of my favorite MCU things. And I think after viewing this as a whole, because I kind of see season 1 and 2 like the perfect halves of one kind of complete thing, I think it's like top 5 MCU for me, which is like the highest of praise, like right under Infinity War. Like, that's how much I liked it. I couldn't believe we got Infinity War style moments, and we're able to visualize something that feels so similar. Like, and they did the Kang stuff and He Who Remains better than, it finally made me believe in where they were going with this multiverse stuff. And we got that moment of the spaghettiing that kind of felt like the Thanos snap stuff. And even those moments with all, B-15 and other people like kind of dusting away, but spaghettiing away. Like, I couldn't believe they did it again. And it felt similar enough where I believed in the stakes and I believed in the motivation of He Who Remains and what he was doing. And they just nailed everything. And I can't say enough good things, and we'll go into it more, but I loved it.
Right there with you guys. I'm going to be insufferable about this thing for a very, very, very long time. Natalie Holt, the GOAT, when it comes to composing. My God, I've talked about the versatility of the themes in this show for weeks, if not years now, going back to season 1. And if this single episode didn't just like look down at me, slap me in the face, and say, "You knew fucking nothing, Tim." I can't believe what they pulled off with this musically and how much it backed up character development, and it backed up stories that somehow ended up making sense. The amount of the Ouroboros stuff of the snake eating its own tail, of like Matt was mentioning the first and last episode being named the same thing, and like literally Loki becoming the god of stories and having this beautiful thing that actually makes sense of him being at the beginning of time with creation of these stories, and having He Who Remains at the end, and how those need each other to feed into each other to just continuously exist. Holy shit, man. Like I am so impressed by the time we got to Loki's like walk and becoming this the god that he's wanted to be. Like Bless was saying, like he finally gets the throne that he's been asking for. But to build that up against episode 5 of the season, when he learns that his greatest fear is being alone, and having to reconcile the fact that he's given up his dream of the throne. His new dream is to now just be with his friends and not be alone, to have to immediately give that up. And not just immediately, it feels immediate to us, for centuries, watch his friends die over and over and over, and just try to solve this. All of that built to just such an amazing moment that it's like, you know, in another world, this could be the end of the MCU and I would be happy. Like it was just so well done. There's so much to think about, so much to get into that isn't just like story lore stuff, but it's just like the themes of life. Like God, they really like went for it with this one. And Loki's always been top tier MCU for me. Like I've always talked about it as being one of my favorite things, like up there with the big guns. And going into season 2, the whole time I was like, I really freaking love it. Love it. It's not quite hitting the highs of season 1 for me. And going into this episode, I was like, there's no way that they can pull something off that gets me as hyped as the Alioth fight in season 1, which to me was just chef's kiss perfect. And then they just did that again, but it's Loki and it is awesome. And he's literally just like doing the exact same stuff that Richard E. Grant was doing in season 1, like realizing his real power. Oh my God. And then the Renslayer stuff at the end of her being in the void, her meeting Alioth, the pyramid in the background, which is like, that's one of the Kang the guys.
I was confused. So was that like, I know in season 1, like episode 4 or 5, right? Like they end up in the quote unquote battle world. I don't know if they actually get
the void.
A void. Is that okay? So that's where she's there again. Is that what that is?
Yeah. I mean, this is the type of stuff that I feel like we will be talking about forever, of like, what exactly are they trying to say here?
Yeah.
I think that this is the beginning of her rise. Like I think that this is her, because the whole thing that they make a big deal out of winning the multiversal war, the first one, was having to tame Alioth, right? So that is like, Kang kind of used Ravonna to tame Alioth, which allowed them to do all the pruning and have control of all this, to get themselves in the position to be at the end of time, the Citadel and all that stuff. And I love that in this, like we clearly saw Loki tame Alioth last season, right? So it's like the idea that all of this, and we learned this episode, that He Who Remains has been orchestrating even all of this stuff. And it's like, damn, you kind of used Loki the same way you used Renslayer.
Yeah. That's the thing. That was the thick thing, is like, yeah, the confrontation with He Who Remains, and one, like, him being like, oh, this is the first time we've had this conversation, and then like Loki like flipping it and doing the pause time thing.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, you think this is the first time we've had this conversation. But I'm very fascinated with the idea of He Who Remains and how much of this is part of his plan, because in season 1, in the finale, he admitted to not knowing what was next, right? Like that was the whole thing, is, hey, like we're at the end. I don't know what happens beyond here. Like if Sylvie kills me, like this is where I die, right? Like I don't know what happens. And in that conversation between him and Loki, it seems like, yeah, he did. I get the impression that he didn't know what Loki was going to choose to do. I think that he thought Loki was going to kill Sylvie, and have that be the thing, or maybe not, because then he would know. Like, I'm confused about the whole scenario.
This is the part that breaks my brain.
Yeah, I mean, I think that again, it's the Ouroboros, right? Where it's just like the snake eating the little tail, but like as that we've seen this season, because of how everything snapped before, it's like there are more possibilities for like pathways to go down, which changes like how big the snake is essentially. And it's like even the final thing of him taking him grabbing all of it, turning the timelines into his clothing. Like, are you
oh my god, the
kidding me?
cape, like the branches kind of being a cape behind him.
Dude, as he swings it over to sit on his throne, like, come on. Him getting the horns that were made up of the End of Time Citadel
so cool.
stuff, which is the same thing that He Who Remains is like advanced Tempad was, with like that design with like the gold cracks. I'm like, there's just so much iconography going on here that I'm like, these motherfuckers are just going off. And for it to end with the temporal loom turning into, I don't know how to say it.
The Idrisil, something like that.
Yeah. Which is like the tree.
Tree of life.
So in Norse mythology, Yggdrasil, I'm just going to call it, is a large tree that connects the 9 realms of existence. It serves as a cosmic axis, binding the realms together and symbolizing the interconnectedness of all things.
So, in like God of War Ragnarok,
There we
right?
go.
Like that, like world between worlds that they kind of hide out in. Like that's the tree of life, and like they even kind of teased it in like Thor 1 when Thor draws like the space map of all the 9 realms. It kind of looks like a tree, but this is like the kind of like first in MCU of like really paying homage to that.
Which is extra cool because when you think back to episode 3 of this season, when they go to the World's Fair thing and like Loki kind of sees the reality of how the Norse gods are talked about in this version of the world, at least, and he realizes he's not part of the conversation. It's Balder instead of him, and he's just like, the fuck, you know? I love that this is him kind of like making his mark on that mythology in the MCU, but seeing the loom sideways and the beautiful shot of it just turning into the tree.
So good.
Come on!
Insane.
There in front of us the whole time. We just didn't know.
I want to keep talking about this. Matt, I'll get to you in just a sec, but real quick, I want to take a word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Shady Rays. 'Tis the season of giving. Get the perfect gift for a special someone, yourself, or both. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades and quick swap snow goggles that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers an unrivaled product that's just as good as any expensive pair we've worn. Y'all know I've been outside in the sun a lot playing Pokemon Go, and it's such a great experience wearing Shady Rays when I'm out and about looking dope. And that's not all. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost or broken replacements. If you lose or break your pair, even on day 1, they told us they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out a very merry deal for the season. You can go to shadyrays.com, use code KindaFunny for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people by going to shadyrays.com, using code KindaFunny, and you'll get 50% off for 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. This episode's brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps you lower your bills all in one place, and it has surprised multiple of my friends and people are kind of funny at how many subscriptions they have that they have forgot they're still paying for. Over 80% of people have subscriptions they've forgotten about. Seriously, think of how many free trials you've subscribed to that you've probably never canceled. That's why I'm such a big fan of Rocket Money. It's so easy to cancel the ones you don't want with just the press of a button. Rocket Money can even negotiate to lower your bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is take a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and manage your money the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/kindafunny. That's rocketmoney.com/kindafunny. rocketmoney.com/kindafunny. Go for it, Matt.
Yeah, I wanted to jump off what Blessing was talking about with He Who Remains and how much of this is still kind of his plan. I mean, there's ton of stuff to talk about, but that especially because like I'm still thinking of like where we're leading with if we're still going this route, who the hell knows at this point. Where I think we were left in an interesting spot where they could go a different route if they didn't want to go the Kang route, but they set it up so much. But I think. Is this all still part of the plan? Like that multiversal war that they're talking about, is that just the one that's coming up? And that's the whole snake eating its own tail thing. Like, even though they talk about it already happening, and that's where I'm with Joey, where this shit just keeps confusing me, where I'm like that multiversal war and you see the mural in the TVA of it happening and things like that. Is that just the one that hasn't happened yet it has happened yet? And then this is still part of He Who Remains
That's my
plan.
bet.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the multiversal war has happened, and the way I read it, right, like what Loki's doing at the end of time right now, or quote unquote end of time, is extending the timelines, right, and like keeping them alive so that the Avengers or whoever has enough time to maybe save the timeline from Kang taking over everything. And so I think the multiversal war that's gonna end up coming up in Secret Wars is gonna be a new multiversal war that essentially Loki is secretly allowing to happen because he's extending the timelines. That's how I read it, but also like it is confusing, so I'm not even sure if I have it right.
I do think that it's confusing, and the reality is, as good as this show is, I have no faith that any project going forward is really going to take all of this logic as seriously as it does.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's kind of silly because of how this show works in TV and a time outside of time and all that stuff. Like everything's happening at once, so it's like, what is the difference between an old war, new war, like realities, all that stuff. But I do think in intent, I'm with you, Matt, where I do think that the war they've been talking about is actually the one that will be upcoming, and I think that is evidenced by the Ravonna stuff, where she seems to be about to tame Goliath at the end of this. Which is like how she gains control to start it all or whatever.
Yeah, I had sort of the same read, right? And I'm assuming if you're just hypothesizing what's going to happen next, like if we do get kind of a Infinity War downer ending thing again with Kang Dynasty or something like that, I'm just trying to see into the future of like if all of this, like it's revealed that it was all part of the plan and we get a super downer ending and then you get Secret Wars being the thing that has to fix it. And I hope that I'm with you, Joey, that this could have been like the end of Loki, or Tim, you even said the end of the MCU. Like, I'd be so happy if we just like let this go and didn't have a Loki season 3 until Secret Wars or something like that, when Loki's finally brought back in. Like, I'd love a lot of time removed where he is just this god overseeing the multiverse, and then Thor probably has to go find him in Secret Wars or something like that.
See, I hope we don't see Loki ever again. Like, I think this is such a good end for his character arc that I'm almost scared of them picking it back up and continuing it. Like, I think for me, like the him sitting on that throne and like holding the timelines together, empowering them, is such a ultimate sacrifice moment for his character. And the idea that like he's given up his friends, right, which he admitted was like the thing that he wanted at the end of it. He's given up his friends. He's taken up the throne, right, completing that full circle, and he's in this place where he is alone, and like the world doesn't know what he's doing, right? Like he's powering the timelines, essentially in secrecy. The only people that know are the TVA. I kind of like the idea that, hey, that's where that character sits. Like that is both him being given the throne, but also kind of him, I think, atoning for the shitty person that he used to be back in the day. So I think it is the perfect ending of that story. I think Secret Wars, we're probably going to see some kind of variant of Loki, but I kind of hope not. Like, I wouldn't want to see this character again.
Yeah, we talked on our episode about like how they could wrap up his story. We talked about like some reconciliation between him and Thor and what that could do. But I like the way that they did it with this episode, and I think bringing him back and like trying to tie up any other loose ends he has is like not going to be as impactful or powerful as ending it here.
Like I view this as his Iron Man moment of snapping his fingers and saving the world.
Yeah.
It's kind of, this is what that felt like to me.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, and I do think this is such a beautiful end for this character. I don't think we'll get a season 3 of this, and I don't think we're going to see this Loki pop up in anything anytime soon. But I 1000% think we see him in Secret Wars, and I think that they can make it good, because Secret Wars, if it follows the comic at all, the 2015 Secret Wars comic, it gets to a scale that is so high and so heady and so like out there that like him being in control all the time, that's not even the top level. Like there's top levels beyond it.
Oh, God.
So yeah, no, it gets,
My brain is
it
not
gets
prepared for
real
this.
crazy. And like, I mean, they've already done enough that like it can't be 1-to-1. I mean, I keep saying this, but He Who Remains is not Kang in the comics. So it's like MCU's making changes that I think could be smart if they keep going down a path that listens to each other, which I have more faith than ever they will at this point. But I can imagine them. Here's the thing: the MCU and this version of Loki is not going to end until the light shines down again on us, brother, with him and Thor.
Yeah.
That has to happen.
Yeah.
So I feel like that'll be great at some point. And then I imagine that whatever Secret Wars ends at, like, I think it's a safe assumption that that is the reset point where he doesn't need to control the timelines anymore because they're all gone. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
So is because we talked about the whole like MCU, like the report and all that stuff, right? And there's like talks about them possibly doing away with Jonathan Majors and all that. Does this put Renslayer in a possible place to take up that mantle to be the big bad? Do you guys think?
Yeah, potentially. I don't think that they're going to do that. Like the thing with the ending of this is because I've been looking at people's responses today, and like a lot of people are like, oh well, they just wrote off Kang. I'm like, not at all. Like the TVA now exists to make sure that Kangs are like taken care of, and them even having the line, which I fucking loved, of just writing off Quantumania, being like, oh yeah, there was like, you know, there was
problem
a
on 616
with Jason Realm, but they
it.
took care of it. It's like, all right, cool, that's awesome. I think the plan right now is very much still to have Jonathan Majors Kang be the Kang, but that could change at any moment.
I have a headcanon just because like Ant-Man beating Kang and Quantumania never sat too well with me, so now my headcanon is that the TVA had something to do with it. Like they just stepped in, they're like, hey, make sure he's not strong enough to beat Ant-Man. All right, cool, we're good.
Well, it sounds like they didn't. Like, right? This is them reacting to that.
Oh yeah, them being like, oh yeah, there was a rumble.
They handled it though. Yeah.
Yeah.
But whatever. As long as we can move on.
Yeah.
And then there is like we talked a little bit on our episode too about the history or the future history, I don't know, of King / He Who Remains and Renslayer having like a romantic thing, and like in some things she becomes a Kang variant.
Not a Kang variant, but
But-
like she gets power.
Yeah. So seeing how they play with that will be really interesting too.
Yeah.
I was surprised that we didn't get any like wrap up of Docs in this episode. And, like,
Yeah.
that
I
was
mean,
a hanging string, but like seeing how the episode played out, I understand why we didn't get it, and I don't think we needed it. But that was just something on my list that I was kind of expecting for this episode.
it was a little weird. Like that whole, I mean, you imagine, I guess it's with how big this show got, we kind of didn't need to because we know that everybody got erased.
Yeah.
So it's like they all just got reset, and it's like that's what that is.
Can we talk about Sylvie and Owen Wilson, I'm sorry, I'm just always going to call him Owen Wilson.
Yeah.
Mobius. Baby.
Watching him on Earth and his line, I can't remember the exact one. I'm sure one of you has it written down. Of like,
For you, for all of us.
yeah. Well, and then I'm just going to sit here and watch time pass or whatever that he says. It's just like, oh, God.
Too many banger lines.
Oh, so many banger lines. The whole burden and glory thing when they had to sit down, he was talking to Mobius, and it was like, yeah, like purpose is more burden than glory, and like kind of that being the thing that Loki almost needed to hear to be like, all right, yeah, I guess that is like that's fucking good, dude.
Dude, they followed that up. They said most purpose is more burden than glory, and I was like, oh,
Yeah, it's like
damn,
bars.
that's good. And then they follow it up with there is no comfort. You just choose your burden.
Oh,
God damn,
Yeah,
dude.
it's so good. And then Tim, I think the one you were saying too is like when Loki goes, "I know what God I need to be for you, for
Yeah.
all of us." So I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my
And,
god!"
and
that
it
is
goes
very-
back to like a line I really liked that from a few episodes ago that like almost kind of felt like a throwaway, but now I'm like, oh, it really hits. Is when I think it was Sylvie and Loki talking, and like Sylvie was like, you know, like who are we to be controlling who lives and who dies, and like Loki's like, oh, well, we're gods, you know, like. At first, I was like, okay, that's a cool line, but also, like, you know, what does that mean? Now that we're here, I'm like, yo, y'all delivered on that line.
Yeah.
That's a really great way to bring that back around.
Yeah, Rorabeck, I don't know if you saw this. Me and Joey were talking about this earlier, but that the line for you, for all of us, which is like Loki's final thing he says, as he like walks out to Sylvie and Mobius, it's the exact same line that he says to Odin in Thor 1 when like he essentially like drops like when Odin's like don't do it, whatever, and then Odin screams no like the exact same way that Sylvie and Mobius do. It's
awesome.
It's just so
That's
damn
incredible.
good, man. But yeah, it's just like there's just so much in this episode. I feel like the pacing of it did such a great job of starting the episode with the Groundhog Day, the fun licensed music. I forget that.
A Fifth of Beethoven. I forget the name of the band, but like the disco remix of Beethoven's Fifth at the start of the episode.
Jamiroquai, right?
No, I don't. I think it's like Walter Murphy. I think.
Oh,
In the Big Apple Band. I only know this because I used to dance to this song like back in the day.
That's awesome. But having the Groundhog Day quick edits where there was like so many cuts, so many again, faster, this, like doing that so quick for like the first half of the episode, and then the second half of the episode just being slow. Like we are just watching it, and I just like I think it was Eric Voss that I saw talking about this. Like they just did such a good job having such a crazy abstract thing happening, but they didn't even need to explain it because we just got it. We understood what he was doing when he's pulling timelines, wrapping it around him and shit. It's just like, this is incredibly like, this is good storytelling. Like this is the proof that the MCU can be so much
Great
more than
character work.
just roller coasters. Yeah.
God. And yeah, like for me, when that the centuries later when that hit, like I was because when he says it, he's like, "How long is it going to take me to learn this?" And Obi is like, "It'll take decades, centuries, even." And it's like, oh, well, that's certainly not going to go that route. And when you see it, it's like, fuck, dude, like that's huge.
And really quick, like just a moment where he's. You kind of put together this isn't the like after like studying all this stuff and it's been centuries later and he's telling Timely the very specific things of like lock your helmet, don't put the thing down. It's like
he's like he's done this before and like this is the run, it's
spent centuries just learning stuff. I can't even imagine
like
how many
Loki's
times
he's playing the ultimate roguelike.
Yeah.
Like he is like, all right, like this has to be the run, like don't drop the thing, like do this. And also it reinforces too him taking that long to learn the physics or whatever. Then like you fast forward to his confrontation with Sylvie and him facing Sylvie a billion times. How long do you think that was? Because when you get to the point where he's like, oh, you haven't learned how to freeze time yet, and then he freezes time. Like if physics took centuries, that probably took like way longer. That's insane. Like he was there for thousands of years, likely trying to figure all this shit out.
Matt.
Yeah, I love that the MCU has set all this stuff up too with like Doctor Strange and the Time Stone too, because we saw this with Dormammu at the kind of end of Doctor Strange, and I think that's so perfect to bring it back and then show how Loki uses time as he learns how to time slip and does kind of the same thing Doctor Strange does, where you go through and over and over and over for centuries or thousands of years, and it's really dark when you think about it. And a lot of Groundhog Day movies do that. I mean, the Bill Murray one did that. Palm Springs with Andy Samberg did that too,
Happy
where
Death
it's just
Day.
like like Happy Death Day, and it's just like this burden that these people have to live with when they do something over and over, and we just see it in a flash. But to what Barrett was saying too, that Loki's done this probably thousands or hundreds of thousands of times, and each time he's just moving an inch forward and learning one little thing that gets him a little bit closer and closer. And I think the storytelling is crazy, and bringing up the things from Thor 1 and going back to like everything we know with the Time Stone in the Infinity Saga, and then using that in a different way here, I just think is so brilliant. It's dark, but then that whole sequence was fun, and then it balances all that stuff so well.
Yeah, it's really impressive, and I feel like Loki, the show season 1 and 2 just did such a great job of using the MCU as a whole, but then this season really using Loki's cast as like so well. And, it was so fun to get to Endgame and then have those moments of going back in time and revisiting parts of the Avengers or Dark World or all that. Loki managed to like make us care about what happened in Loki. Like going back to the season finale of like last season was awesome, and going back to like episode 1 of season 1 of like him and Mobius meeting for the first time, which
back and forth.
Me and Raj were talking about last week of like when he saw all the quick flashes and he time slipped into a bunch of different places he's been. We're like, why is he back in that room? And it's like, oh shit, it's because it's where he met Mobius. Like they had that moment in this episode. It's just so so great. Like they accomplished something where the spaghettiing and all that felt like the snap, and this felt like an end game. Like this felt like they solved the Infinity War problem, but just in such a like more cosmic fashion.
Yeah.
And they made something so complex feel so
Intimate.
intimate, and also like understandable. Like I know it's still heady, right? But it's also, you can follow it, and it's through the writing and all that stuff, but it's also just through visuals and like visual storytelling. Like even us talking right now, like made me think about the fact that, you know, you bring up the time stone and how all the timey-wimey shit kind of loops back to that and all that. And like, you know, the whole green thing of him, you know, grabbing the timelines, powering them green. Like at first I saw that as like, okay, well, Loki's color is green. Like that's the thing with Loki. But I'm like, I guess that's also time stone shit too. And the fact that the MCU has enough foresight to like connect those things and have it like turn that into a theme of, hey, when you see green, like that is time, but also it is Loki. So guess what? Loki's now the king of time. It's like, what the fuck, dude?
Is that on purpose or is that a happy accident?
I mean, there's
Might be both.
they're like we always talk about
B.
MT now at Heavy Spoilers has this thing called he calls the Marvel trigger theory, the MT theory, where he breaks down colors in the MCU and like what they all mean, and like there's a lot more there than you would think. Like I do not think it's all coincidence, but there is a thing. He's not the god of time now. Like he's the god of stories
For sure.
So, but I know it's kind of like, you know, splitting hairs a bit, because at the end of the day he has control over time in a way that like no one else does, which is awesome. I have a question for y'all that I don't know you'll have the answer to, and I might even misunderstand a couple of things here, because I watched the episode once and then I watched the last 20 minutes 3 more times.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah.
Dang.
But the first 20 minutes I'm a little hazy around. When Mobius and Loki were having the conversation at some point, and it's revealed that like why Mobius is who he is, and that he had a partner who was Renslayer, and there was a variant, when like an 8-year-old variant at the Black Sea. Is that what they said?
I don't remember
Yeah.
the location.
Yeah, that lost me.
So
I think it was Black Sea. Yeah.
who's the 8-year-old? Like, what is the variant? Like, is it just?
I originally thought they were talking about Loki and Thor when I first watched it. Like I thought Mobius, like it was because they said, oh, killed 5,000 people later in life, and I'm like, oh, that could be Loki, right? Like he had to go and kill like a child version of Loki. But I did watch the episode a second time right before this, and I don't think that's what they're referencing. I think it might just be the old thing when people go, would you go back and kill baby Hitler or whatever, and stuff like that. Like I think it's just that kind of reference. I don't know if it's supposed to specifically be anyone, but they did say Black Sea, and I was like, oh, maybe there was some Norse mythology, something there, and I tried to look up a little bit, but I didn't see anything. So I think it was just some random thing where Mobius finally had some morals of what he was doing and like wouldn't purge this kid from the timeline, but then Renslayer being a little bit more ruthless and having to do the hard thing to for the greater good, I guess, had no problem just purging this kid from the timeline. That's what I took from it. And then that's when he kind of backs away from this stuff and maybe becomes more of an analyst than a hunter. But that's kind of what I took from it. But
yeah, and again, now I need to go back to even season 1 stuff to think about this. But I really liked that Mobius has kind of been like studying Loki forever. Like he knows everything about Loki's life, and like he's tied to Loki in a way, and like that's why him and Loki have even had all the adventures they had season 1 and now season 2. But with Sylvie being this little kid on the run since she was like a little girl, hiding in apocalypses, I forgot about that from season 1, just how dope that is as a concept. And then bringing it up in this, I was like, damn, that is right. Like what a cool ass idea to like hide from the purging in universes that are about to die.
It's really easy to forget why Sylvie hates He Who Remains so much and hates the TV so much and wants to like will murder He Who Remains with no matter what the situation is. But it's like, yeah, like she was chased her entire life, and like she's also seen all these apocalypses, right? Like she knows what devastation looks like. She understands what the TVA is doing, and so she is like, it makes sense that she's the ultimate opposition of the TVA. She wants it to die no matter what.
Yeah, man, so much cool stuff here. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
I liked when He Who Remains called himself HWR.
Yeah.
That killed me.
R.I.P.
Just seeing Timely die over and over and over again in that groundhog sequence was very, very funny too. Quickly before we go, because I guess just like the future stuff, like the Renslayer thing, I do want to go back to that because Tim, I think your theory is interesting. And like, but the one thing I keep thinking about is them specifically showing that the logo and that for all time always kind of thing of the TVA, almost like she's standing where the TVA used to be. So I always thought of it as this weird contingency plan where, He Who Remains sends, Renslayer just, again, what we talked about, like if he knew all of this stuff was going to happen and that this is his contingency plan, but I don't know where. Again, the time stuff is weird because it's all happening at once, but time does move in a linear fashion, sort of, in that, because we see Loki time travel to all these locations. So the thing I keep thinking about though is the grass blowing back and seeing that, and I'm trying to go, well, is it just from a former version that was purged, or how many times has he rebuilt the TVA, or is this just weirdly in the future or the past when he sends her back? So I keep thinking about that, and they're showing us that for a reason. So as much as I don't know if Loki's going to continue, I think that is the thread to think about, I guess, moving forward. And I'm sure we already know we're going to see the TVA in Deadpool 3, and I'm sure that's where the TVA will live on, is that it'll pop up in a bunch of different multiverse projects, or we get like a TVA series and it's not necessarily a Loki series. But those are kind of the things that I'm thinking about for like the future of where this goes, because I'd be happy with what Blessing and Joey said about Loki just ending here and maybe not seeing him either for a very long time or ever. But I'm curious of where they go in the future with that thread and with the TVA.
I think that it was set there open enough that it could either just be she was sent to the void and Goliath killed her, and like this,
That's
like
true.
she doesn't have the stuff this time to like take it down. Because remember, she still doesn't have her memory back. She just was told that she used to be different, that she used to be like a war general or whatever. So it could either be this is the beginning of her becoming that war general. And you know what? Actually, no, that's what it is. There's no, with the evidence this show gave us of Obi and Victor Timely like helping each other write the handbook. Yeah, this is 100% her
origin story
to become the multiversal warrior or whatever the hell that means. I don't think we get a Loki season 3. I don't think we get a TVA show. TVA in Deadpool, if that's all true, which at this point I imagine it will be, I think that'll deal with this stuff. But I think that the TVA as we know it is probably going to be like compacted to this, and like everything else will just be like characters appearing to help other characters. But we'll see.
I definitely see her being a big part of Avengers, like the Avengers movies, the King Dynasty and Secret Wars when we get there. Like I'm with you that I think this is her origin story, at least this version of her. And like to the Void stuff, right? Like there's correlation, right, between the Void and Battle World.
No.
Somewhat, like
so here's the thing. Correlation, I don't know is the right word. Could it be this version of like the MCU's version of Battle World? Absolutely.
Because that's what I see it happening, right? Of like her becoming like this, not conqueror, I guess, but warrior, right? Her becoming this big war general, her gaining power over Goliath and controlling Goliath, and then like her being instrumental in turning what currently is the Void to a version of Battle World, right? And like this maybe being the scene where we're bringing people back here to fight for the timelines. Like I could see that being the route they take.
I could see them doing that. That would upset a lot of people because it's like, I mean, like, because the characters involved in Battle World and its creation are Doctor Doom and the Beyonder, like, which is like Doctor Doom, you get it, big deal. Beyonder is like just
Who the fuck is the Beyonder?
It's just so cosmic, it's so big. It's like
there.
the biggest thing ever, essentially. So it's like if they were to make that Renslayer based on this stuff, I feel like that they could make it work, but I think that they're going to go a different.
It'd have to be like one of those weird like combining of characters kinds of things.
Which they do. And I mean, specifically in Loki, they've done multiple times now with Sylvie and He Who Remains. So
did they show the Beyonder in Love and Thunder? Who am I thinking of? Like, what was that being that they show at the very end that like
it's
I forget. I'm thinking of something else probably.
Infinity.
But Infinity. Yes,
Infinity,
you're right.
yeah.
You're right.
Same level of
Eternity.
Eternity.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you, Barrett. And then the last thing. Sorry, go ahead, Barrett.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. The last thing I wanted to bring up was I thought it was interesting. We've all been talking about like when the multiversal multiverse saga is going to get going. And I think it's interesting that this is technically the first thing chronologically, because everything that happened, even though centuries passed and things like that, time's relative in this space and things like that, all of this is immediately after and the result of Endgame, right? So this technically is the beginning of the multiverse saga, right? Because we see they talk about, Kang and Quantum Mania, and I assume because this all happens before everything else we've seen in phase 4 and 5, that it is the reason of things like No Way Home or even Doctor Strange and things like that. Because I know that the sacred timeline was a bunch of timelines woven together, and maybe I'm thinking too much about this, but I almost think of those are all still a result of what happened in this show, or am I?
That's 100% how
misreading
I
that
see it.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
I've never thought.
That's
I
dope.
didn't think that hard about it.
I've thought very hard about it. And yeah, I mean, I think that adds up. Again, is there weird inconsistencies there?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, there's gonna be. But I do think that we are finally at a point that like all the post-credit scenes and all the stuff could make sense. I'm not saying it does make sense, but I think we're at a point that we're like, it's like, oh, okay, cool. The incursions, we understand what that means, and the how, what, where, when, why, all is starting to line up in a way that I'm like, all right, cool. We can see this. But I do think it's all eyes on Deadpool 3 at this point. I mean, like for
Fucking go.
for many, many reasons. It's now the next MCU film.
The only one next year,
the
isn't it?
only one next year.
Really?
So
So
wild. Yeah, they shifted everything around this
Oh my
week.
god.
yeah, so Deadpool 3, it's the only MCU film. Show-wise, we got Echo in January, and then like What If Season 2 and X-Men 97 are the only things like slated even at all confirmed. Like I don't think there's, because Ironheart got pushed. I don't even know. So I think we might have like a nice little break, which could be a very good thing, specifically in the planning portion of stuff. I hope they kind of get some stuff going there. But I think Deadpool 3 is going to, in many ways, kind of like everything that we've had in the last couple of years has been building, hinting at multiverse stuff. Here's an X-Men here, here's a mutant there, here's a fucking whatever. I think that Deadpool 3 is going to be like kicking the door down of like, we're going, baby.
Yeah.
As if people weren't already so stoked for just another Deadpool. 3. It's
Exactly.
like,
Yeah.
oh, there are
with Hugh
big
Jackman.
implications.
Barrett?
I have one question, and it is actually a question that comes from one Rafael Casal, who tweeted out 20 minutes ago, what a finale, but then his follow-up tweet is, but where's Brad now? Where's Brad?
I hope exactly the first one. I hope he's making movies. I hope he gets to live his life.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I again, like this goes back to where's Docs or whatever. I think that when the loom exploded, it sent everyone back to the timelines that they were supposed to be in.
Didn't Brad just watch a bunch of people get crushed in a cube?
Yeah, it was fucked up.
Screw
Yeah.
Brad. I hope he's not making movies. I hope he had some flops.
Zaniac.
When was the last time we saw him? Because we saw him in episode
He was in this
5,
for
right?
a hot second.
In the finale?
Yeah.
Really?
When they're in the rooms, I'm pretty sure he's in this for like a hot second.
Yeah, when he grabs Timely.
with Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Miss-
there's like
Oh,
he's
right.
there for a split second. So I think he was in episode 5, and that was like the last time we saw him for more than a minute.
Yeah. It was I don't even know if you see like a full face or not. It might be like half or like just the back of his head.
Interesting. Now, something we got to talk about.
We got to talk about this.
Miss Minutes.
Oh,
yeah.
she's back.
She's back. And
chill.
can I
She's
trust you? And she's all there like smiling. Same smile she had when she killed a bunch of motherfuckers
Yeah.
or watched a bunch of motherfuckers die.
Categorized as deranged.
Yeah, so very interesting that they're trusting her like this. Doesn't seem advisable. And yeah, I don't know. That to me is one of those things where how in control is he who remains still? I mean, if Miss Minutes is there, probably to some extent.
Yeah. Everyone's got their eyes on her.
Yeah. But I did not expect her to be a part of the Loki plan and to come back at the end.
No, not at all. I thought she was long gone.
Yeah. I mean, maybe she's useful. Like maybe she's kind of centered to how the TVA runs, and so it's either have her or the TVA struggles. Maybe that's it. But
Right.
yeah, it is weird that she's. I was like, oh, all right, cool. Just keep her around, I guess.
The evil you know versus the evil you don't kind of
Yeah.
a thing. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm absolutely in love with this. I am happy that this season gave me an MCU moment that I'm going to watch over and over for the rest of my life. And many theories to talk about. It's been great talking to all of you about the
was fun.
show. We will return again, like I was saying, for MCU in Review next week, where we rank, review, and recap this. I'm going to put it pretty high. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm going to put it pretty high.
Yeah.
But Matt, where can people find you?
You guys can subscribe to the Untitled Movie Podcast and Untitled Movie Reviews on YouTube and all podcast services. And you can follow me on all those social medias at Matt Rorabeck. Thanks for having me, guys.
Hell yeah. Until next time, have a marvelous day.
We're all dead.